Hey, it's meteorologist Ian Kowalski. I'm back with another episode of Weather Eye in our new studio setup. Hope you like it. Over the next couple of days here in Grand Junction, we're going to be drying out a little bit. Currently, right now, it is the 21st. And what we're seeing right now is a lot of dry, pretty warm, average though, an average warm. What we should be seeing this back half of spring, varying seasonal, but a little bit of rain up towards our northwestern corner of the state. We're missing out on all that. A beautiful view. You can see our America's Mattress Live Terra Cam now here behind me. It's gorgeous outside right now. Just these awesome cloud structures we get here on the western slope. But boy, do I wish a little bit more of that rain was getting into the valleys. That will be happening, believe it or not. There's some rainfall expected on the back end of Memorial Day weekend. I know. Maybe not exactly what you wanted to hear, but it is mostly going to be in the evening. Could impact your travel plans. We'll be taking a look at a national view of that here in a little bit later on. But first in the show, we're going to be talking more about this severe weather outbreak going nationwide right now. Now, the main thing we're thinking about in terms of threats and what's happening is a lot of thunderstorms and potential for isolated tornadoes. It's not the biggest outbreak we've ever seen by any means, but I think we can get a pretty good look at what is actually going to be happening here once we look over the next couple of days by looking at our SPC outlook. So here's what we're looking at in terms of our main zones of when we're actually going to see some severe weather. Those yellow zones right there, that's a slight risk zone. And I know slight doesn't sound like a lot, but really it actually is a big threat of that severe weather. It's a slight risk of severe weather. And you got to remember, it's over hundreds of miles. So slight still means there's going to be something more than likely happening. It's just going to be contained only to a small couple of areas. And that's kind of the visual you can see by those thunderstorms. We'll take a closer look at them here in a moment. But if you're looking at our overall Storm Prediction Center map right here, all of this moisture here in the southern portion of the United States stretching on further over towards the east. But the main stuff is actually right here in Colorado. If you could believe it or not, the eastern side, the plains part of the state, is going to be seeing some of that severe weather popping up. And maybe you've already heard some of it from your friends. Again, this is the 21st, so you might actually be a few days from now and you're looking at your phone, looking back through the past few days of all your friends texting you about the crazy thunderstorms that they've seen recently. So what are the threats that are associated with this? There is some light tornado chance, as we mentioned. It's this green zone right here. It's a 2% chance. Remember, it's 2% over hundreds and hundreds of miles. So you do still have to watch out for that. And at the same time, we are looking at a little bit of potential for some hail and strong winds that you aren't kind of expecting on the Front Range for this time of year. No real surprises there. It's stretching all the way down. You'll notice that from Colorado all the way down into portions of Texas. Why is that? We'll take a better visual of that later on in the show, but essentially there's a low pressure all the way up here towards the north and then all the way down here towards the south. And so it's this band between those two zones basically forming its own pseudo front, two different air masses. And that's why you're seeing those stronger gusts stretch all the way from down in Texas and the border with Mexico all the way up here to Colorado. So it gives you a really cool sense of scale just with how much weather there is across the country. And so much of it, in fact, that we really do have to have so many different buttons to show you it. So let's talk about hail next, because that's actually one of the bigger threats that we're seeing here. And in fact, earlier on, New Mexico was one of the places that we were expecting some larger hail earlier on in the day. And now as we move into the evening, it is again moving a little bit further on over towards the east. You can see our graphic changing here too. Let's take a more of a zoomed in look at that. We're looking at this yellow zone here. That's when you're expecting the biggest hail, and it's in this yellow, we'll say a little shape here. And that's a severe thunderstorm watch. And then, of course, you see the thunderstorms with the little arrows telling you about where they're going. Again, we'll take another look at that here in a little bit. But it's this watch zone right here. That's kind of one of the areas over the northern portion of New Mexico that they were seeing some hail. In fact, 1-inch hail was reported earlier on in the day. And the expectation is these storms you're seeing developing right now actually towards 2-inch hail. That's about the size of a hen egg. If you're any farmers in the audience, you know that that's really big and not anything you want to be falling anywhere near you, your car, your house. So definitely, again, hail has always manages to just be this massive threat, despite the fact that you don't think about it as much necessary as, big, scary tornado. And certainly they can be big and scary, but hail, just in terms of property damage, is really unmatched at times, just with how much it can do on top of winds, of course. Winds are, the number one. And I don't think anyone's too surprised to hear that, just in terms of how much damage, just going by the numbers that you see. So let's take a little look at our radar. What is going on right now here across the plains region of the United States? We'll take a little zoom in here. It's mostly in the panhandle region of Texas and Oklahoma, heading over towards the east right now. You can see this darker orange zone in here. I'll zoom in just so you can get a better visual of that. That's your severe thunderstorm warning. There we go. Let me click there right on time. It has expired. That's why it's disappearing and you can't really click on it anymore. But it's this big old front coming right on through here into the panhandle. But fortunately, no tornadoes associated with that. But if you are looking on the front range of Colorado right now, you do see a severe thunderstorm watch and tornado warning in this dark red right here being issued with some severe hail that we can click on this dot here up to, again, about an inch and a quarter is what the estimates are going to have right here up in there in the corner of the screen. So we do see, again, that severe weather spot over on the front range. What's that mean? If you're heading east along I-70, it might just be south of those storms, but overall, you should be trying to get to some safety, maybe pulling off the roads. For the most part, it does look like it is avoiding that major lane of traffic, but we, of course, still never want to see that. As we look at the next couple of hours here, it is going to still be ongoing. Take a look at our products here to give a little bit of a better view onto what is actually happening with these tornadoes right here. So take a look right here. Here is our differential reflectivity. It's single site. Never mind. My apologies. I misunderstood my tools a little bit here. So let's go back here to our national U.S. radar. There we go. So that's what we're looking at. Let's look at echo tops. I think this is a very good idea on what actually happens here with these storm systems. I'll take a little look here. Generally speaking, these areas are a bit grayer, but then you notice they get a little bit lighter as you go towards the middle. Why is that? It's basically just looking at cloud height. That's the main thing we're looking for. And as that gradient increases, you start to see the lighter areas, the higher up that those clouds are going to be going. So we're going to come back to this here in a moment. We're going to look at these severe storms going on in the Front Range, Colorado. But how would I say this? A look of nostalgia for many of you who moved here for the Western Slope. I'll show you this package right here coming over from just outside of Missouri over in Raymore. They didn't have some downed trees recently. And so I wanted to take a look back at something that I grew up with. Certainly, they might not see as much here in Western Colorado, but having to shave down your trees because of severe storms and winds. Take a look at that package right now.
A storm whipped through Raymore Monday night, uprooting trees and snapping tree limbs. Strong winds also took out this playset and flipped a trampoline.
It was pretty shocking. All I could think of was just get my family downstairs.
Christy Woodbury lives off Lucy Webb Road. She says the storm took out a tree on the side of her house and several in the back. She's grateful the family was safe and no damage to the house.
We were lucky. Nothing hit the house, so we were very thankful for that. No one was hurt. And the tree that broke off over here on the side, it completely fell over our fence and was laying half in the backyard. But our fence sustained one broken board that I was able to fix myself this morning. And so we're very thankful that it could have been a lot worse.
Woodbury says these crews are working quickly to clean up the mess despite this misty weather. They also cut down a hazardous tree to avoid future issues or damage to the home.
All right, well, taking another look at our radar right here. Not much going on here on the Western Slope. There's really nothing to see pretty much, especially when you look. You can kind of take a broader view of what's going on with our radar, only a little bit of dots up there. So let's take a little look at the northwestern corner of the state. So we'll talk about the Western Slope and we'll go back to the Front Range. Here's all our snow right now, and you'll notice this right here too. This is a freeze warning. We're getting some cooler air associated with a low pressure system coming over from the northwest. So what's that going to mean for us? Well, it's going to mean a degree or two cooler here in Grand Junction as we get into tomorrow, but that's still low 70s. That's below average, but nothing too bad, nothing too extreme one way or the other. Just a little bit cooler what we saw earlier on in the week. Again, we're recording this on the 21st. And you see this light rainfall heading on further over towards the east. And then, of course, we return towards those storms going on the Front Range. Again, a tornado watch has been issued here for this area right here. And a tornado warning, actually, that's what those darker red zones are right here. We're heading on over towards Burlington and Stratton. Right here we are, fortunately, kind of in this more middle area. Now, you never want to see a severe thunderstorm anywhere near anything in terms of structure-wise, but it does fortunately appear to be avoiding the major highway for the moment. And it is heading, again, with this easterly track. So as long as it stays in this direction, it will avoid where a lot of traffic is currently at the moment. But when you look over towards Deal Trail Hill and further down towards our south when you get towards Cedar Point, Lima, Those are those areas where you've already seen those thunderstorms start to pop up here. Again, you do see that stronger hail built in there too, but you generally don't see a lot of hail unless you see those pink dots built in here towards our radar. That generally means you're seeing that very heavy downpour, and overall, those really just higher clouds, because to get that hail, you need a cloud that goes really high up onto the air so you can actually get the water that will freeze, and that's mainly why you see that a kind of differentiation here. So let's take a look at how much rain we've actually seen here on the Front Range so far. Really over the past couple of hours, mostly looking at that half an inch range. We haven't seen these heaviest totals unless you're looking, remember, this is our 1 hour rainfall. That's right here, 2 inches of rain in just under an hour or so. That is a whole lot of water coming over towards the Front Range as we move into the next couple of minutes here. So, hey, we'll take all the water we can get here in Colorado. We've been so low for so long. We'll be talking more about that and some some water usage restrictions here in western Colorado. But I also wanted to give you another look kind of at that nationwide view. What is this? This is our IR view of where we're seeing a lot of the storms right now. So let's take another look down towards Texas, down towards Oklahoma, see where you're actually seeing these storms ongoing. This is where all your moisture is at. It's building up here along the Rocky Mountains. That's when you're actually getting it starting to be worked on. It's running into those different air masses. As you know, Rocky Mountains act as a huge divide for the western coast of the United States in terms of where you are and are not seeing that weather. And most of it right now is because of low pressure systems here bringing up a bit of that moisture coming over from the west coast, going across Mexico into here, and then working with what you're already kind of seeing over towards the east, down over towards the Pacific coast. So that's generally speaking our look of what's happening right now across the country. These are where you're seeing that severe weather threat, again, even present here in Colorado. As we look in the next few days here, we are going to see not too much change in terms of us here on the western slope. We're really just calming down as we get into the weekend. But I do want to show a little bit more, take one last look at those severe storms and see if we can spot what is going on right here at the ground. So taking another look here, this is where our warning is at. I'm going to remove some of these layers here just so we can get a more clear view of what we're actually looking at. We're going to get rid of the lightning here for a moment, and we're also going to be getting rid of these arrows. So why am I doing this? We are going to look to see if there's actually any tornadoes going on there right now. So we are going to need to look for base velocity. What is this? So this is just the direction of the winds effectively toward and away. You can see it right there on the corner of the screen. Green is when it's moving towards the radar, and red is when it's moving away. Very simple, nothing too crazy. And of course, when you have the green and the red mixed up right next to each other, that's when you're seeing those severe storms pop up. That's when you're looking for a tornado right here. And if you look, you can't really see too much right now. That's very good. That's what we want to see. We don't want any tornadoes for our friends on over towards the Front Range, but you see enough of a little dot pop up here for a brief moment. That is why you did see that warning being issued. Remember, a warning is not necessarily confirmation of a tornado here on the ground. And so that's just another more in-depth look at that. So we'll take another little break here. We're going to take another look across the nation. What else is happening across the country? The main thing, number one right now, is, of course, we're looking at a little bit more of fire weather. It's very different than what we're seeing here on the Front Range. You're getting all this water, but we're going to be taking a bit of a trip as we move. Oh, excuse me. I hit the wrong tab. Here, let's just go to full screen right now. We'll take a look over here as our last package before we cut on over to our break. Basically, what we're going to be seeing is over the next couple of days here in Colorado, it's drying us cooling down. But over towards the west coast, you do see that increasing wind threat that we have seen here. Those stronger gusts on the western slope also have been affecting the west coast. That same system moving on through, and unfortunately has led to increased fire danger. We'll take a look at Sacramento, California real quick to see how they've been battling wildfires, already starting to pop up as we get into the earliest portions of wildfire season on the west coast. And then we're going to bring it right back here, talk about local weather and some real rainfall chances coming up, as well as a much cooler weekend getting ready for JUCO later on. So let's take a look, and I'll join you back here in a moment.
Fire crews throughout the Sacramento region were busy on this Monday afternoon putting out grass fires. This one broke out along the American River Parkway near Campus Commons Golf Course. The Sacramento Fire Department says it was likely human-caused. Despite a steady north wind and thick vegetation, firefighters were able to limit the burn area to less than 2 acres. Shortly after that, Sac Metro firefighters put out flames in North Highlands along Silver Spur Way.
Really, we're just now starting to get into fire danger.
Metro Fire Captain Mark Nunez says now is the time of year when they expect to start seeing fires on a regular basis.
With these winds, it helped dry that grass out that had a little bit of moisture left in it much quicker.
At the very beginning of spring, it was looking like fire season might get off to an early start around Northern California because the month of March was unusually warm and dry. Grasses were drying out ahead of schedule. Then in April, a good amount of rain temporarily put the brakes on fire danger, but those April rains allowed a second crop of grasses to spring up in some areas, so now we have even more vegetation that can fuel fires.
Within the next month or two, it's all going to be dry.
Nunez says fire crews were staffed and ready for the recent red flag conditions.
And all of the incidents that we've had over these past couple of days with this wind, we've been able to keep to a very small size. And that is due to the fact that we're able to respond very quickly. All of our stations are staffed. We've got our helicopter available, our dozers available. We're ready to respond to handle any type of incident.
And he urges property owners to be ready as well.
Making sure you've got a fire break around your home. You take a very windy day like this, let's say we have a fire that's coming towards us, it's not uncommon for those embers to be able to be picked up and thrown hundreds of yards away. So that's why we're always encouraging, keep your grass very low.
Hey, I'm back after our break. It's meteorologist Ian Kowalski. Happy to be talking more local and national weather with you, but we're in our local weather segment of the show right now. Again, I want to point it out, absolutely gorgeous on our America's Mattress Live tower cam. It's May the 21st right now, and you're seeing this beautiful cloud structure as you are getting some rain at elevation, certainly over towards the Grand Mesa. We're not too surprised to see that, but it is staying its way out of the valley for the most part. At most, you might see a sprinkle or two over in Palisade, but I haven't seen reports of that so far. Let's take a look at our setup nationwide. I mean, you can see that big low we've talked about all show long, bringing that precipitation over towards the mountains, but not really us here in the valleys. And in the band between that low up towards the north and the blue area and the orange one right over here on this part of the screen. I did the pointing right this time. All right, what's that mean? That's why you're seeing this boundary. We talked earlier on in the show about all that over towards the Front Range. That's why you're getting all that moisture, all that energy build up there, because these two systems are interacting with each other, kind of forming this band of weather across the United States. And now they're moving on over out of the area. So we're moving into high pressure. See that little ridge of orange here right over on the side of the screen? That's high pressure. And what that's going to mean? Well, it's going to mean some warmer weekends. And we would like it to be a little wetter too. And wet is coming. Don't worry. We are going to get some rain early next week. We're looking at Memorial Day afternoon going into Tuesday. That's when you're going to see that rain pop up first. Afternoon might be a bit of a stretch. Late afternoon into the evening, more specifically, is what our timing is looking at right now on May the 21st. If you watch that between now and then, please keep a close eye on the forecast so we can time it out a bit more precisely as we get closer. Because if you're leaving, or your friends are leaving the western slope, rather, or you're coming back, you definitely want to know about that weather coming up because it looks like widespread rain and storms across the western slope and some rain, snow potential at elevation pass level. Here's our drought, though. I know I hate to talk about all of that. As we look at a drought map, a little bit disconcerting, but we're still in that extreme zone here in most of Mesa County, but Delta County has started to move more to that severe zone due to a little bit of a drought. That's an improvement, but severe drought is still never good. It's just better than extreme, better than exceptional that you see in the central portion of the divide. And we are at 17% of our average snowpack right now. So we have less than a fifth of the snow that we typically do this time of year. Not what we want to see. Again, we are expecting, unfortunately, potential for a very strong fire weather season here in western Colorado, which is why we need to get ahead of it. How do we get ahead of it? Well, it's a lot of the jobs done by our city managers who do have to put a lot of work in saying how much water we can and we can't use that we got to preserve. It's also our firefighters, our emergency responders who do a lot of hard work. Our Marge Tobin, earlier on today, talked a little bit more to Ute Water, another important part of the picture, talking to them more about this kind of water restrictions that we may or may not see, as well as how we should be using the water as we move later on into the season here in Grand Junction and across the western slope. We're going to take a look at that, keep you informed about what's happening here locally, and then we'll get into our forecast.
Ute Water, the largest domestic water provider on the Western Slope, serves about 90,000 customers from Debec Canyon to the Utah border. Now, for the first time since 1977, they're implementing drought and emergency water rates starting in July for water used in June.
Drought rates are to encourage our customers to conserve water and to use as little water as possible.
Officials say historically low snowpack, early runoff, warm spring temperatures, and expected irrigation shortages all played a role in the decision. The district also says customer water usage went up instead of down earlier this spring after residents were asked to conserve.
When we saw an increase in temperatures at the end of March, we did see an increase in usage from our customers. And it's estimated that our average customer's usage increased about 25%.
Under the new rate structure, customers using 3,000 gallons or less will still pay the $28 minimum monthly rate. But costs rise for higher water use. For example, the rate for using between 9,000 and 15,000 gallons will jump from about $5 to more than $14 per 1,000 gallons. Officials also remind residents that Ute Water provides domestic water, and many customers also have separate irrigation providers that may hold their own restrictions.
We are hearing that some irrigation providers have restrictions currently, and so encouraging folks to figure out who their irrigation provider is.
The City of Grand Junction has an online map where residents can check both their domestic and irrigation water providers. Another resource is dripinfo.com, which offers water-saving tips, including watering lawns overnight to reduce evaporation and collecting up to 110 gallons of rainwater. Marge Tobin, KREX News.
All right, so that was an interesting look at what's happening. Again, those drought rates, you heard about them. I know it's not necessarily what we want to hear, anything that would cost us more money. However, point of it is to keep us safe as we move later on into the season, make sure we have plenty of water here on the Western Slope. So that was a look at that. And one of the reasons, of course, that we need all of this extra water, because we didn't really build up much snowpack, and that's because it was so darn warm. Not only dry in terms of not getting enough rainfall, but warm too. It's the second warmest spring we've ever seen here in Grand Junction, so it's no surprise the mountains are pretty reflective of that overall. And averaging just a little over 71 degrees. In fact, believe it or not, again, we're recording this on the 21st. Basically, the entirety of the season up until this week, we were in first place, the warmest ever start to the spring on record. And of course, we're near the back half at this point. So we would like to, in fact, not hold that record. Me personally, maybe I'm a little biased on that. I would like to not be the warmest spring ever. So I'm happy with us dropping a second. So let's take a look at what's happening in our Futurecast over the next couple of days here. As we get into tomorrow morning, this is Friday at 2 a.m. Again, that'll be the 22nd. 50 degrees in Grand Junction, 44 in Delta, 43 in Montrose. And then, of course, those lows, I do have them a little bit lower overall, kind of in those 40s compared to what we're seeing on our model here. And you see those little sprinkles pop up here and there. It's not affecting us in a big way. I'll tell you that. I don't think you see anything on the valley floor here in Montrose, maybe a little bit down towards Ridgeway. And then you see that thunderstorm roll through there too. Again, getting a little bit further south of Montrose, kind of getting that Ridgeway. You might see a thunderstorm pop up here or there as you get into Friday later in the day. So do keep that in mind. But I don't have anything reaching the Western Slope valleys. It's going to be too much virga. What's that mean? It's the rain evaporating before it reaches the ground. No surprise to hear that. Again, we see that all the time here in Western Colorado. Getting Saturday night, getting to those 40s and 50s once again. And then we're finally kind of springing back into the 70s and even low 80s for many places on Saturday. It's just started JUCO too. So keep that in mind. You need your umbrella, sunscreen, water. You know all the drill by now. I hope you do in Western Colorado. It's warm and sunny here for so much of the year that you definitely need to be prepared for that. Getting later on into the day, of course, you're seeing a warmer evening overall, getting over into those 50s overnight. As you move to Sunday, warming up more and more. High pressure is going to be setting into the area like we discussed earlier on in the show. Scattered precipitation across the mountainous regions of Colorado, but again, no real big systems. We kind of dry out overall as you get into Sunday. But as I mentioned earlier on, it's going to be Memorial Day. Here we go. See, Monday at 2 p.m., we're starting to see that rainfall pop up in Western Colorado. Now, I have it arriving a little bit later than a model. We're still a bit further out. Keep in mind, I'm recording this on Thursday. This is going to happen on Monday. So timing tends to change a lot when you get further out than like 2 days, meteorologically speaking. You really see those timing shift with big systems. So just letting you know that now. It likely will not be at 2 p.m. exactly, but a little bit later in the afternoon is what I'm forecasting at the moment. Getting closer to sundown. Seeing widespread rainfall across the Western Slope, and I do expect that to last. Additionally, into Tuesday. So keep that in mind. 2 days of rainfall here in the western slope. Tomorrow, I do want to point out gusts aren't going to be so bad over the weekend. Today, they're up to 30 miles per hour, getting closer to 40 in some places periodically here in Grand Junction, especially. But they won't be so bad, only getting up to around 25, 30 miles per hour at the very, very most as you move into this weekend. So let's take a look at our regional forecast really quick. We've talked about a lot. You see that system moving on over towards the big old front, heading on the front range, brought those tornado warnings we talked about here in a moment. See some rainfall going down towards Pueblo tomorrow, but remember, most of that is confined towards the San Juan Mountains and then a little bit further central towards the Divide, and then heading on over towards the front range where that moisture starts to build up a little bit more, and then a little bit down towards Albuquerque to New Mexico. Safe for traveling down there for the weekend. Do keep in mind that rainfall will be possible, especially if you're driving south from Denver and down into Albuquerque too. So there's a look at our system. You see start that rotation getting going there. That is because, of course, the low pressure system coming our direction, bringing us rainfall here in the western slope as we get into Monday of next week, Memorial Day. And then just kind of more of a wider view of that. I won't take too much time on it because we really covered most of it earlier on. Going a little bit further on over towards the east, as you see here, that's going to be Midwestern storms. Just giving you another view of that. I know I'm covering up a little bit of it, but generally speaking, the western portion of the United States is going to start missing out. So here's our time lapse that we saw just a couple days ago on our America's Mattress Live Tower Cam. Very pretty outside. Some more isolated clouds. I unfortunately can't instantly time lapse what's going on right now here on May the 21st, even though it's a very beautiful cloud structure looking on over towards the east. But right now, still very beautiful to see here in western Colorado. And of course, if you would like to email me with any questions about the weather or maybe submit some photos of those pretty clouds coming into the weekend, I'm Kowalski at KREX.TV. So feel free to send me an email whenever. I do check them as much as I can. So thank you for watching this episode of Weather Eye. I was happy to have you here with me this week. We talked a lot about, again, a lot of rainfall, on some potential for thunderstorms, even maybe tornado warning or two on the front range. And then here on the western slope, we're finally seeing the return of some much needed rainfall as we get into early next week as we close out the holiday weekend. So thank you for watching this episode. We'll be back next week with more Weather Eye.